Hey, so you want to know what to expect when you take the SAT, the reading and writing sections? I'm going to go over that with you here so you're prepared when you go into the test. So, SAT reading and writing sections are combined. There are two modules on the test, and the test is adaptive. This means that the level of the questions that you get on Module 2 depends on how well you do on Module 1. So, everyone gets about medium level questions on Module 1. And if you do amazing on Module 1, then you may notice the test getting a bit harder for Module 2. And if that happens, it's great. That means that you actually answered Module 1 questions really well. And so they made the test a little bit harder for you and gave you some harder questions. If you notice that the questions in Module 2 are easier than they were in Module 1, then you may not have done as well in Module 1. So they dropped back on the medium questions and gave you some easier questions. Each module has 27 questions, and you have 32 minutes per module. So it's about a minute and 19 seconds per question. The cool thing is now there's only one question per passage, and each passage is only about 25 to 150 words each. So if you're not sure about a passage and you don't really connect with it, it's not a big deal. You don't have 10 questions about that passage anymore. You only have one question, and the passage is short. So it's not as hard to get through it and deal with it when you're not connecting with it. You just answer that question and move on. Every question has four answer choices: A, B, C, or D. So you're not writing anything, you're analyzing other students' writing, but you're not writing anything. And the questions are always in this order. So out of the 27 questions, you're always going to start with the vocabulary questions. And then after the vocabulary questions are done, you go on to reading comprehension. The reading comprehension questions have different question stems. Like some of them might ask you what the main idea is, or the main purpose, or ask you to support the reader's claim or the author's claim, or what a student might think is the most important detail, something like that. Then after that, you go on to the standard English conventions. Every one of those questions is the same question stem. It just tells you which is the best answer for the standard English convention. So that's your grammar, your punctuation, those kinds of things. Verb tense, subject verb agreement. And so then after you finish the grammar questions, you won't have any more of those. You'll go on to the transition words and phrases. It's important that you know your transition words. If you don't know the difference between nevertheless, in contrast, thus, you might want to learn those. And I have all that stuff in my course. And then next, you have the student notes questions. Student notes are the bullet points. So once you get to the section where you see there's bulleted student notes, that's when you know you're on the last section of the test. And you'll see that it says there's like a little paragraph right before the answer choices. Read that first, and that'll tell you exactly what you're looking for. So when you go to the question stem with that little paragraph, you may not even need to look at the student notes. And so when you look at your answer choices, you're going to get down to maybe two answer choices that you're not sure between. Then you can go back and look at the student notes to figure out exactly which one is the answer. And you may not even have to look at the student notes. You may be able to figure out the answer just from the answer choices. So those are my favorite questions, to be honest, because I think they're the easiest to answer. So the passages come from literature, including poetry, historical and social studies, humanities, science. There will be infographics, including only tables, bar graphs, and line graphs in the reading comprehension questions. You may have to look at the graph and the passage to answer the question. You may find most of your information in the passage. You might find most of your information in the graph. It depends on the question. And you might not have to read the whole passage with those graphic questions. You may only have to read a portion of it. So I like to tell my students to look at the answer choices, then go up and look at the bottom of the passage, kind of where it'll. So if you look at the question stem, the answer choices, and then you look at the bottom of the passage, it'll kind of tell you like the scientists hypothesized or something to that effect. And if it's asking you about what is the scientist's hypothesis, then you know that's all you need to read. You might not need to read the rest of that passage for the graphics questions. So, once you get to the end of these question types, then you're going to start back over with Module 2, and you will go right back to the same order. You're going to have new vocabulary questions, reading comprehension, standard English conventions, transition words and phrases, and student note questions. So now that you know what to expect on the SAT reading and writing portion, it's time to prepare yourself for all the sections of the test and do your best.